out of the creek and Gap Valley stuff. And then I'm waiting for some of the lift maintenance.
Cameron, we were hoping to do a test on the audio. Can you hear us okay?
Yep, I can hear you. It just turned on like 5 seconds ago.
Okay, he's not coming out.
I hear you too, Jen. Can you hear me okay?
Us okay?
Yep.
It just turned on like 5 seconds ago.
Okay, he's not coming
I hear you too, Jen. Can you hear me okay?
Us okay?
Yep.
It just turned on like 5 seconds ago.
You need to close YouTube comments. Yes, you are. You open and not to go down.
Nobody showed that. You know that.
Yes, close out. It automatically pops up.
Some of the secretaries.
There we go. Yeah, I know, bring everybody back up. Yeah, you're good, you're good.
But I wouldn't want to.
I knew what was going on. It's happened to me a million times.
Yeah.
Okay, John, I think you were asking if I could hear you.
Hello, John.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
That's when you have to do
You
it.
still need to pair
And that's what I was doing.
your owls or not.
Jen, can you hear me now?
Make sure they're paired.
We should think about some of that. Sounds good. Yeah. You too, I guess.
Yeah. And Elise is.
I'll look forward to that. Yeah, we could. That's all.
I thought Carolyn was gonna join us from Japan. Oh, she's not. Okay, and Elise is. On vacation. Okay, all right. So there's just the three of us.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is why I think that.
That's right.
That's okay. We'll move through this stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
30 seconds. John, can you talk to us again for a second?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
No, it's not coming from here. It's very.
Well, I could hear.
Hello, hello.
Okay, John, one more time.
Hello.
Sorry, we're just trying to pair the devices.
I had two computers going because one of mine crapped out. So I've got it back down to one now. So hopefully that took care of the echo.
Okay, all right, we're good.
But the district.
Where's the?
You're on.
Fine.
No.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call the public hearing of October 9th, 2024 to order and accept public comment regarding the proposed 2025 budget. So any members of the public, either here present or online, who would like to address us on that topic, please so indicate. You're not holding up your hand, are you?
I was just greeting our marshal.
All right, okay. Well, despite the fact that there's not an overwhelming number of people clamoring to the microphone, we have to hold this open until 5 after the hour.
We'll just leave some space.
Yes.
Oh, shit.
Is that a public comment or?
Oh, sorry about that. I thought I closed the wrong window. Pardon my outburst. Pardon my outburst.
The only input we're gonna get, John.
Well, I just want to throw a battery change, you know, why is it that your keyboard batteries always die at the critical moment? It's like Murphy's Law.
Oh, it's Murphy's Law of things.
Murphy's Law.
There you go.
Almost.
Message, a motion to close the public.
Second.
Okay, a second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? No.
Aye.
So, at that point, I'd like to call the town council meeting of the Alta Town Council meeting of Wednesday, October 9th, 2024 to order. And invite any members of the citizenry or the public to address us. And
We don't. It's online.
we have no attendees online. And are we required to keep us open till
No,
good?
I thought we did, somebody was saying though, I heard a little birdie say that somebody was gonna make a public comment.
Oh,
I was informed by Citizen X, but I don't see them,
Okay,
so.
I'll tell you what, if Citizen X happens to show up, why don't we admit Citizen X to make a public comment later? All right, in that case, let's move on. And we're honored today to have Chief Burchett and a number of other folks with us to speak to us about upcoming matters, and I want to extend well, normally we have the whole station 113 here. Instead, we have the bosses. What should we make of that? I want to extend my admiration, gratitude, and appreciation for Chief Burchett and the crews of the UFA who deployed to Tennessee to aid rescue and recovery from Hurricane Helene. It's an honor to be in a larger community who comes to the aid of our neighbors, even when they're 1,000 miles distant. So, and I think you're probably gonna go on to Florida too. Oh, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, we're gonna start with,
where would you like me to go?
come to the podium. Let me, I hope you see that wedged in there.
Okay,
We have a PowerPoint, is that able to be brought up, the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Rachel Anderson, I'm the district administrator and legal counsel for UFSA. It's been a year since we've been here, so thanks for having us back again. And I have a presentation that I'll walk you through the first several slides, and then we'll have Chief Burchett speak and Tony Hill, our CFO. Can you go to the next slide? I'm just gonna kick it off. This is a little bit similar to what you saw last year. We'll point out some of the areas where things are different. UFSA is the special district service area that collects taxes that are used for providing fire service. We serve 12 jurisdictions, the ones that you see listed there, including the town of Alta. And what we do with these taxes is we pay a membership fee to the Unified Fire Authority, which is a separate organization that provides fire service in our jurisdiction. And we were here last year with the tax increase, and hopefully you will recall that that when we spoke with you last year, we explained that that was gonna be part one of a two-part process, and so that's why we're back here today. The board, when considering the tax increase last year, decided not to do one big tax increase. They decided to split it into two smaller ones so that residents weren't hit quite so hard with a single large increase. So much of what we're here today to talk about is part two. Can you go to the next slide? The purposes for the proposed tax increase, I'm only gonna touch on these briefly because Chief Burchett will be talking about them in depth, but cost of service increases, inflation that we're all experiencing, upgrading fire stations as the service area grows, we often have the need to build new stations, to rebuild old stations that are no longer as serviceable as they once were, and we've also done a lot of seismic upgrades to our stations over the last year. Additional staffing needs, again, this is in response to, in large part, population growth, and some other factors. And then we also need to maintain a board-approved minimum fund balance, which we'll get into more detail later. Next slide. So we're going to talk about this tax increase in two parts. Part one, phase one, I don't know what I'll call it, is kind of like the phase two of what we brought to you last year. But this slide right here is the total proposal that we're bringing. So for the commercial or the average residential value of a home in our service area is $525,000. We recognize that varies greatly across our service area and might be a little bit greater up here in the canyon. But using that as sort of our baseline, the impact of this tax increase proposal would be $93 a year for residential, or about $7.77 a month. Go to the next slide. Thank you. This is where I start getting into phase two of what we brought last year. So phase two would actually amount to about a $3.45 monthly increase, or $41 a year. And again, this is just a bit of a repeat of what we discussed last year, and then in a moment we have a second part to the tax increase that Chief Burchett will talk about. Can we go to the next slide? Again, before I move this to Chief Burchett to talk details, again, we have general inflation issues, wage issues, capital replacement costs, and building construction issues, and he's going to go into those in more depth.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, Mayor and Council, for having us here. I'll try to be brief, but thorough here. So as the cost of service, that's UFA, that's the service, fire service. So these are the four areas that I'm going to talk about in the increases that we've seen. This was all presented last year, so I don't want to waste too much time on it, but we did update the numbers. So I'm just going to go through these slides pretty quickly if you want to go to the next slide. So as far as general inflation, there's a couple examples here of the inflationary costs that we've seen over the last 6 years. You can see turnout's 86%, our fuel budget 32%, our medical supplies. So of course, these are just a few examples, but across the board, we've seen inflation. With our wage increases, on the slide in front of you, we've tracked CPI for the last 6 years, and then compared that with our entry level wage over the last 6 years. So CPI is 26.6, almost 27%. While our wages at entry level have only gone up 22%. So the one thing that we're trying very hard to do is find the best people we can to serve the public. Finding people that can afford to live in the service area on an entry level wage has become challenging with fighting against CPI. But we are not in a position to compete with CPI. We're more in a position to compete with our neighbors. So we compare with all the other fire departments, and we raise our wages accordingly. So that's why we're not at quite CPI. I think we're below that, and we're still able to find good people to do this. The other cost increase factors are capital replacement plan. We have a big, robust plan that identifies all of our capital equipment. So whether we need a lot of them or they're very expensive, we have that outlined for the next 15 or so years. So on the slide there's a couple of examples of a few big ticket items in the cost increases that we've seen. So our type 1 engines, that's 32% increase, ambulance 27%. And then our ladder trucks, the most drastic, 69% increase in those. So these things are all obviously identified in the capital plan. They have a lifespan that we try to meet and a replacement for them. And in order to keep that plan healthy, we've had to continue over the last number of years to increase that money towards that plan. A number of years ago, the UFSA board gave us direction to make sure all of our fire stations were seismically sound. And this is nothing new from what I presented last year. But we have completed all of this, the new station construction, the seismic upgrades. And so for now, we're done with construction on the UFSA side. But that's where those two bonds came into play. The next slide is the building construction and the comparison of the cost difference between what we've seen over the last 8 years or so, but the 2016 bond, that fire station in Taylorsville was done at $290 a square foot. The last station that we completed on this last bond was done for $554 a square foot. So a 91% increase. My team was directly involved with the design and project of the new bonds, and we were focused heavily on durability, functionality, and cost effectiveness. And we still came in at $554 a square foot, so a drastic increase. Next slide. So what we ended on last year was we need to make sure that we're keeping up with population and call volume. And so this was touched on last year, but what I want to talk about, what we're looking at for this year is upstaffing in Kearns and Eagle Mountain. So if you go to the next slide, when we talk about population in our service area, that's gone up about 35,000 people in the last 6 years, which equates to more people, more calls. So we've seen about a 7,000 increase in calls annually. The last piece there is the capital improvements and how we need to continue to focus on those fire stations and making sure that they're maintained and maintain their operational capabilities. So we have to keep making sure that we're pushing money towards those. Next slide. So when the decision comes to me as to when to add a unit or an engine or a company, I'm looking at a couple of different things. One, how many calls they're going on, what's their population served, and how quickly can they get to those calls. So when we're talking about Kearns, we're looking at adding a crew at Station 107, which is on the west side of Kearns. Kearns right now is served by one fire station, and they're serving a population of 36,000 people. They have the highest call volume in our service area with 2,300 calls a year. So what that's causing is an inability to respond to all the Kearns calls. So they're out on another call, and a second call will come in. So we're relying on West Jordan, West Valley, and also Taylorsville coming in to handle a lot of those calls. So adding a second station will put Kearns back into the midpoint, which is where we want them. Being number one in this chart is not a good thing for us. So next slide. The second thing I talked about is response time. So we target in our urban areas between a 6 to an 8 minute response time on average. Eagle Mountain at one point a number of years ago was considered rural, and so a 10-minute response time was appropriate, but they have grown in population and size drastically over the last couple of years specifically. So they now are considered an urban area and need to meet their urban target. So in Eagle Mountain, you can see that they're serviced right now from 2 fire stations and 50 square miles. So a big area that they're covering from 2 stations, which then relates to a slow response time. When we look at response time, we look at the 90th percentile, and right now Eagle Mountain is 1044, which is below what we consider appropriate for an urban area. So adding staffing to the station that was built, that's station 253, has been part of the plan since that bond was taken on, and now I feel like is the time to make the staffing push there. So that's all I have. I'm going to pass it over to Tony here.
Thank you, Chief and Mayor. It's good to be here. I have the last few slides that just kind of sum up some of the financial details of what's going to be in front of the UFSA board for approval in December. In order to provide the additional staffing that Chief's talked about, we need to raise $6.3 million. And so you can see what the impact per the average, using that same average that Rachel talked about. $51 per year or $4.32 a month for the average resident. So the next slide shows, again, this is where we started. This shows the total impact per the resident, the average resident in UFSA. So part one of the increase is a little over 5 million, 6.3 million for part two, so a total of $11 million. On the slide there, just can't see, but that's okay. And $93.77 per month. This slide here, just as a reminder to the council, this is the history of UFSA raising taxes since its inception, so 2008, 2018, and then now the last 2 years here for the reasons that we've talked about for the last couple of years. One of the items talked about on why we need to do this increase is our fund balance. The UFSA board has adopted a 15% minimum fund balance, and that's what that red line is there. So in 2024, 2025, we need about $9 million to $9.3 million in reserve to meet this 15% reserve minimum that the board's adopted. This policy, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, in consultation with bond rating agencies and our financial advisors, it's just good practice to have a fund balance, a minimum reserve, in case you need it for emergencies or other things. And so,
In case you have a fire.
in case there's a big fire.
Yeah.
You know, we've had big fires in areas and we've needed to up staff and having that fund balance is important. So this slide here shows where we'd be without the increase. You can see that blue line takes us well below the number, and then this slide here shows where we are with the increase. So kind of really right where we need to be. The last year out there is 2026. So with this increase, we're right in line. Really, we're a little bit above, but right in line with where we need to be with our minimum fund balance. Next slide here just provides some history on the tax rate that UFSA has levied. The top line is our maximum rate. By statute, we can levy only up to that line. It's 0.2300. And the line below that is where the rates been, the adopted rate. So back in 2013, we were right near the max, and that's come down over the years. And with this increase proposed increase in 2025, we're at 1726, still leaving us well below the max. This provides, the next slide shows the revenue for that levy provides UFSA. So in 2024, we're a little under 50 million. This would take us to a little over 62 million. And just as a reminder for the council, the service area only revenue source is property tax. We don't levy any sales tax, franchise fees, any of those other types of revenues that municipalities can levy. As a service area like us cannot do that. So 95% of our revenue is property tax revenue. So when you see that 62 million, that's really all of our revenue.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Okay. Access to federal grants or other subsidization for like NSSE type events that come from Homeland Security, Olympics, Exhibit A. Do you guys leverage those things as well? Can you do that?
We do.
Is that part of your normal calculation?
Yeah, so that would be on the UFA side as the service provider. But we have FEMA grants, we have all sorts of grants, state grants and federal grants that help in our emergency management function. They help provide, we've had a grant recently for our behavioral health right? So things like that. And I'm sure as the Olympics get closer, there'll be things that we need to do in preparation, and we'll leverage grants for that for sure as well.
But that's not part of this calculation.
That's not part of this calculation because this is, the tax that we're talking about, the tax
Yeah, got
side
it.
is UFSA. The service side, which is Unified Fire, since they would be providing that service, they would be the ones getting those grants.
Okay,
But we did get a grant from, on this side of the house, because we were the building owner, so when Chief briefly talked about the seismic upgrades that we did at all of our stations. We did that through a 75% grant from FEMA, and we just had the 25% match, so that was a big grant that helped get our stations in a more functional position. So we're definitely looking at that. Grants are an important part for us, so. And then the last slide here is just talking about when the public hearing will be. So on December 10th, we'll hold a public hearing, and at that time, the UFSA board will make their final decision about this tax increase, and if they want to, do it as presented or do something different. But that's when that final decision will be made by each of the board members that represent the entities inside of UFSA. So that's right there, you can see it December 10th. As you get questions from citizens in your entity, please invite them to come to this public hearing. We are anxious to hear from the public and their thoughts on this proposal. And this is a great opportunity for them to share how they feel. So with that, that's our last formal slide, but we're grateful for the opportunity to be here and happy to answer any questions. I can answer them, or obviously, of course, Chief and Rachel are still here too. So any questions for us?
I asked my question.
Okay, John?
How do charges for emergency medical services fit into the 62 million?
That's a UFA cost as the service provider. But as for UFA, they have two major revenue sources. It's the member fee that we're talking about here. And then we have a $11 million budget for our ambulance charges. So that is a revenue source that you're not going to see today because this is UFSA, but if you went through the UFA budget, you would find that revenue.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anything from the staff?
By ambulance charges, you mean costs covered by patients? Correct, or their insurance?
That's right. That's right.
Do you know how much of an ambulance ride is covered by that?
Well, we have state fees. We have the state levies those fees, and it depends on if it's an ALS call with a paramedic or a BLS call without a paramedic. And there's mileage, so it depends on how far you transport them, right? So there's a lot of variables, but that rate is a state rate that we just gets passed on to us, and we're allowed to charge that to any of our transporters.
It was a prominent topic when we were going through the process of joining UFSA, and I paid a couple ambulance bills, and I thought I remembered it was something 90% of the cost was borne by the patient, essentially, or something like that.
Right. Yeah, there's a whole formula that the state puts together, like every year, us and all of the other ambulance providers submit our costs, right? Here's how many transports we went on, here's our cost for our people, and then they create the formula and give us the amount, but you're probably about right on where that is.
So, yeah, Jay, you want to say something?
It's another question.
Come up to the,
Since we have some different council members here versus last year, and different from when you decided to join UFSA, would it be helpful to have an explanation of the difference between UFA
yes,
and UFSA?
yes.
Who's the best person to do that?
Oh, you're not you want to start it, and then we can help. I think you got it, Jay.
So to explain on simple terms that a firefighter would understand, and I hope you remember when we were talking about this. My job as a firefighter is to respond on calls and provide service, and so it's difficult for some of us to delve into some of the bigger picture. But the bigger picture is UFSA is a taxing entity that citizens and business owners pay directly into to provide fire and emergency medical services within that community. So if you are part of UFSA, you pay the direct tax to receive that service. UFA is a bigger entity that includes both UFSA as well as member cities that pay separately. So you used to be part of UFA. And so instead of having the town of Alta pay a fee to receive those services, you decided that it made more sense and was cheaper to have individual citizens and individual taxpayers from the business owners pay that tax fee directly to receive that service. So that there's two separate types of things operated under the umbrella of our chief and two separate boards with members that are sometimes members of both. So Mayor Burke is a member of the UFA board as well as UFSA board.
Being that UFA is the umbrella.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Cause I was writing as fast as you were speaking, which was not easy to do. No, it's all good.
All right, I'm sitting down.
Anything else for us?
I'd just like to make a comment that we in Alta benefited from a couple of years ago. You're increasing this from a 3-handed station to a 4-handed station. And in addition, you got us Jay back, which is great. My only bone is you start your meetings at 7:30 in the morning. Man, that is hardship.
That's allow you to have a full day of skiing.
Yeah.
And we've tried to juggle so hard with all the municipalities having evenings, like municipality has a Monday through Thursday evening already. And this was, we've been 7:30 probably since the start of UFA, just to avoid the evening meetings from all the other cities, so it's early for us too. But we just do our best to make it work, so.
Fortunately, we have Zoom, but we don't have to try to get there in the winter from here.
That's true.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I add something on?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Just want to tell your community for the firefighter you lost that you did the memorial for. Just condolences to all you guys on that loss.
Thank you. Okay, next item is Salt Lake County update on public safety bond.
Have some folks from the county online.
Great, well, Councilwoman Theodore, do you want to kick us off?
You bet. You are going to hear me, hopefully. And see me. Can you hear me all right?
Can you say your name though? It looks like you grabbed somebody else's link, because I'm assuming you're not Brad. To join the Zoom. Can you just state your name when you speak? We can hear you.
Dee,
I'm
I
Dee
think
Theodore.
it's asking you, yeah.
Yeah, I'm Dee Theodore here.
Oh. Okay,
County councilperson.
yes,
Can you see me okay?
yes.
Go ahead, Dee. Thank you.
I'm so sorry I can't be there in person, but I'm juggling teens and driving them around and etc. So anyway, thank you for having us here at your meeting. Thanks for being here, and appreciate everybody in the audience. Public safety bond is on your ballot this year, and this is something that the county council has worked collaboratively, slurring my speech today. I've been talking all day, collaboratively with the mayor's office, and we are working together to present this to you, and we've been going from all over the county basically. And for this bond, it's been a long time in the making, basically. We've been putting a lot of effort, a lot of funding actually into Oxbow for some time now. And we've been very careful about it actually, because we weren't sure where we were going with that jail. And hopefully you know that we have the main adult detention facility that's on the main campus, and then the Oxbow facility as well. And so there's 2 campuses, and basically the Oxbow has been deferred maintenance on it basically. And so we've been trying to decide, since I've been on the council, if it's best use to put more funds into this building or not. And so we've been contemplating and talking about this for years, actually, and trying to decide where we go. What can we do better for Salt Lake County? And one of the biggest issues that I found while I've been on the council is I've realized that mental health plays a big component in all of this. And so when they came up with the JAC, the Justice Accountability and Receiving Center, I thought it was a great opportunity to do something new. And so we talked about it as a council. We've had multiple meetings and we've talked through this issue extensively. So, but I feel wholeheartedly that mental health plays a crucial key in all of this. And so that's why I voted in favor of putting this public safety bond on the ballot for the voters to decide what they would like to see from their county. So that is what I'm here to say. And we had a council that was 8-1, and that's where we're at with this bond right now. So it will be on your ballot. And we have our experts here to present all the details, the fine details and questions that you might have that arise through this. And you are welcome to reach out to me anytime as well if you have any questions. So I'm happy to answer those for you. So thank you. And I'll turn the time over to Andrea, I believe, to present on the public safety bond.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I'm Andrew Roberts. I'm Mayor Wilson's Chief of Staff, and we, really appreciate the opportunity to be here today to talk to you about this public safety bond. If you want to go to the next slide, I can jump into what it is that we're asking voters to approve. Not sure who's controlling the slideshow, but
It's out there. It's public safety bond.
perfect. Great. All right. So this bond is really trying to address two capital expenditures that are interlinked in terms of I think populations we're trying to serve and the outcomes that we believe that we'll see should this bond pass and we have the funding that is needed to build these facilities. Number one, as many of you probably know, we have two jails in Salt Lake County. We've got the Oxbow jail, which is the older of the two. Please don't ask me how old it is because I'm not positive, but it's quite old, old enough to where, as the councilwoman said, there's loads of deferred maintenance that needs to be done. And even if all of it were done, we would still only extend the lifespan of the building by 10 to 15 years at best. So you've got that issue, right, with an old facility. And then on top of it, you've got the adult detention center, which is our other jail, a bit newer. It's got about 2,080 beds roughly. However, we've not added a single jail bed to it since 2001. And in that time, Salt Lake County's population has grown by 300,000 people. And then as I'm sure everybody, probably also intuitively understands, our jail isn't exclusively housing residents of Salt Lake County, right? People can come in and commit crimes from other areas. And, if they're in our jurisdiction and go through our court system, they end up in our jail. And with that said, Utah's added over 1 million people in the last 15 years or so. And so we're in a position where we definitely need to add capacity to our jail system. And so from where we sit, we believe that the best and most prudent way to do that is to shutter Oxbow, move its entire capacity, which is 552 beds, of which about 337, I believe, are actually operational. The rest of them are unfunded at the moment. The pods in which they exist would take so much repair and maintenance to get them up and running that it just hasn't been a financially prudent decision. But we want to shutter Oxbow, rebuild the capacity onto the adult detention center, add more mental health beds to it, and then in addition to that, build a 100 unit step down facility. The idea there being that as inmates are preparing to exit the jail, they'll receive connection to employment opportunities, job training, mental health, substance use disorder services, as well as help finding housing when they exit the jail. Again, as many of you can probably imagine, more folks leaving the jail are homeless than those who enter it, right? I mean, you find yourself in jail, you may be losing your mortgage, or you may, be renting a place and obviously can no longer stay there. So the idea being that we want to, have people exit the jail in a position where they are committing fewer and fewer repeat offenses. I actually talked to the sheriff today and learned this, which I thought was particularly interesting. We have about 32,000 people who are booked into our jail on any given year. Of that, about 70% of them are repeat offenders. And so people who are coming, in and out of the system, we really hope to address that, which the next part of this bond proposal, if we could go to the next slide, is the Justice and Accountability Center. The Justice and Accountability Center is intended for low-level offenders who are repeatedly involved in the criminal justice system because of underlying issues, such as unaddressed mental health and substance use disorders and/or unstable housing. The Justice Accountability Center, otherwise known as the JAC, if I may, for brevity's sake from here on out, will provide intervention in the form of a structured environment with resources to stop the cycle of criminal behavior. This will include dedicated caseworkers, again, job training and employment services. So much like the step down unit at the jail, but again, think of this as a facility for low-level offenders, whereas, we hope to send folks that, need more of a structured time out from society to the jail. But again, lower level security, still connected to the criminal justice system, but receiving the resources that they need to put them on a path towards self-reliance on their way out. Go to the next slide. This public safety bond is part of a larger plan that Salt Lake County has embarked on. We have worked with the district attorney. We've worked with Sheriff Rivera, also worked with the state. The governor's endorsing this bond along with municipal leaders throughout the county to get input on what it is that our system is currently lacking and what gaps and holes we can fill. The idea, though, at a very high level is, again, if you remember that statistic I shared, 70% of the 32,000 people that we are booking into our jail on an annual basis are repeat offenders. A stay at the jail costs $136 a night, whereas a stay at the JAC would cost $75. And so our hope is that not only can we provide a facility that costs less, but also, again, if we are providing people with a structured environment in which they can get back on a path towards self-reliance, will hopefully over time reduce the burden on taxpayers to serve this population. We go to the next slide. I guess I got ahead of myself a little bit. There's the cost savings that we're projecting. As the councilwoman said, this was bipartisan. It passed 8-1, and true credit, honestly, to our respective teams at Salt Lake County. I think this is one of the neater efforts to be involved in. Council members really rolled up their sleeves and got involved. Credit to Councilwoman Theodore and her office, for really being there and asking tough questions and helping refine this into a much better product that we're happy to put on the ballot. If you want to go to the next slide. This gives you an idea of the cost breakdown of the costs associated with each facility. The total cost of the bond is $507 million. The total cost of the project is $602 million. We've got $100 million that we've set aside at Salt Lake County in anticipation of this project. We also believe that the sale of the Oxbow property will net, and I think this is quite conservative actually, but $20 million. But you'll see the Justice Accountability Center makes up about 100 million of this. The jail expansion really is the brunt. But again, I think that comes with having not added any capacity in, over 2 decades. Go to the next slide. I think I've touched on this stuff. If we want to go to the next slide. This is our timeline. We just got past the public meeting yesterday. And now we are moving towards ballots being mailed. We'll hit election day. And then if this is approved by voters, work will begin immediately on figuring out how we're going to get this operational. But we do anticipate that construction, will probably start sometime next spring or summer, and will take about 18 to 24 months to complete. Go to the next slide. I should say this wasn't on these slides, but the bond, your average household was valued at just over $600,000 in Salt Lake County. So a household worth $6,000 or $600,000 would see a property tax increase of just under $5 a month to service this bond over the course of 20 years. So I don't know if there's questions, but happy to take them. I know I just threw a lot at you, but I would love to talk this through and answer any questions you may have.
The question I have is that the entire amount is funded by residents of Salt Lake County. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. There are no opportunities for federal grants or whatever?
There is on the operational side, and we're pursuing those pretty heavily. And I think also obviously going to be going to the state legislature and looking for funding on the operational side as well. Pretty difficult to get federal grants to fund the capital construction cost on these types of facilities, but on the operational side of it, we anticipate having a great deal of help from the federal government. Medicaid, for example, is going to cover quite a bit of the cost of the Justice Accountability Center.
Okay. Other questions from John?
Nope, I would just say thank you for such a complete presentation. It was really interesting, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate the opportunity. And if there's any follow-up questions, please email us, and we're happy to send around whatever information you need.
Thank you.
Okay, let's turn to Mike Wan, who I trust is up there. Yes, give us the highest of the highlights. We're a little behind here.
Sure. Probably the most significant highlight is that, we had the little tour that was done by the Cottonwood, the Central Wasatch Commission.
Right.
And we had an opportunity to do a presentation, and one of the asks that we had of the legislators that attended that event was to help us get a traction law in place that would work for the canyon better. As a result of that, we had a meeting with Representative Benyon and UDOT in the 4 Cottonwood Canyon ski areas. And we discussed the possibility of putting a traction law into place and what it would take. And she was supportive of trying to move something forward. We're working to try to get Senator Cullimore on board. But basically, we were able to get all 4 ski areas to agree to the idea of a traction law that followed the sticker program, 5/30 seconds of tread, and the respective tires that could be implemented for a period of time for the season. So we're hoping that it could be implemented from, sometime in November till early April. That you'd have to have a sticker or at least a traction devices that meet that requirement. there was a little reluctance from UDOT to put that into play for a time frame. They were more leaning towards a time like the forecast. In fact, they indicated in the meeting that they were going to turn on and implement the traction law this season based on weather forecasts rather than waiting till the road gets slick. So that was a positive win if that really happens, but that seems to be the direction they're going. So where it is right now is Representative Benyon is going to try to draft something up and then it will go to UDOT in the ski areas for review. The town of Alta should get in that loop. Brighton is Mayor Knopf was in that loop, and he's very supportive also. So that's probably the most significant thing that's happened. It is underway. We've signed our agreement with Interstate, going forward with parking reservations again for this next year. Same as last year, pretty much. Other than the big change there is the violation is going from $75 to $150. That's consistently what they're using in Big Cottonwood Canyon, and they noted that our violation rate is higher than what they're seeing in the other canyon. And so they encouraged us to move our violation rate for parking without a reservation up similar to what they're using at their canyon. So we've moved in that direction. We'll be implementing that for this coming season. Other than that, we're finishing up our projects, getting ready to get all our snowmaking stuff in place. We have a little project we're finishing up, snowmaking up by the Bend. We have a good hiring season going on. We've had over 500 applicants for jobs at Alta this year, which is a really significant increase over what we saw even last year. So that's, I think a lot of people want to come here for some reason. So that's kind of a high-level overview. Any questions?
Well, Mike, you probably can't see her, but Representative Benyon is with us. And so she'll speak to that.
Great. Great. Yeah, I didn't see that. So hopefully I said the right thing.
Okay, any questions of a Mike from John, say?
Just one quick comment. Chris and I attended the event that Mike spoke about with the legislature and the CWC. And I just want to say that I was really impressed by Mike's comments. They not only were clear and advocating for Alta ski area, but also advocating the best interests of the town of Alta. And I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. That sounds like really great positive traction. And I know it's a lot comes down to you, advocating for that with UDOT. So thanks.
Positive traction, yes.
If I could use that.
Okay, anything else for Mike? Let's go to questions regarding the departmental reports. Anybody want to elaborate on any of the departmental reports? I've encouraged Mike to make some elaborations.
Mike Moore, Town Marshal. Mayor asked me to comment on our activity report for the past month. Specifically, we had two noteworthy incidents involving threats of violence. I will say that both of these cases are still active investigations, so I can't get into the specifics too deeply, but I will tell you that one incident occurred at the Alta fee booth, where a motorist with a dog in a vehicle was asked not to take the dog into Albion Basin. That culminated in him exiting the vehicle and assaulting one of the booth employees and making some pretty high-end threats. We have prosecuted that case as a misdemeanor, and it'll be in our justice court. The second incident involved a domestic violence situation at one of the local lodges involving wedding guests. The adult male traveling to Utah from Phoenix became overly intoxicated, was asked to cease his behavior, and at that point made some violent threats against property of the person that he was traveling with. So We don't have enough evidence in that case to pursue charges. However, the man being on probation out of Arizona has seemingly violated the terms of his probation and would be adjudicated that way. So I guess the footnote is, it's the same story that we unfortunately come to tell the council. That while we don't have a lot of that type of crime, we're getting more of it. We're having to learn to adapt on the fly with the staffing and facilities that we have, and this all goes into our long range planning.
Thanks, Mike. One quick question. So that's our new trailer sign down there, is it not?
That's actually one of our old trailer signs, and I've got to give props to Deputy Chickberry and who disassembled both signs by hand. Got them sandblasted, refurbished, so that we can hopefully get another 5-10 years out of them. So if you see James and Mike, they put a lot of sweat equity into that.
Yeah, we'll definitely hit them up when we see it, but I just noticed that we had a dog sign that was cycling through that, and I think that's helpful, because the dog by permit sign that requires reading glasses is not our best announcement to people who may transgress.
And so I've actually talked to UDOT on that subject, and they're gonna allow us to use one of their roadway signs that has avalanche information as you go down the canyon. They're gonna allow us to use the back of that sign to post a prominent dog by permit message as you come into Main Street here. So
Thanks for the update on the violence.
yeah.
The dog issue has got to be particularly challenging with Snowbird permitting dogs at Oktoberfest this year. It's really a mixed message. And there must have been, I was over there last weekend, and there must have been at least a dozen dogs wandering around that had nothing to do with Alta, that didn't have dog tags and canyon tags. And it just seems like there's been a bit of a disconnect, especially with the Oktoberfest crowd, as to whose responsibility it is to dissuade or prevent people from bringing their personal dogs, non-work dogs, non-therapy dogs to the canyon event.
Well, I can't speak for Snowbird, but having good relations with some of the public safety staff, I will tell you that the people that are bringing emotional support animals, claiming them to be service dogs to the Snowbird facilities, is just blown up. And like I always say, if you want to have a fight in Little Cottonwood Canyon, mention dogs or parking. Get very emotional when you approach them about their dog, and I know the public safety staff at Snowbird has had some situations escalate really quickly, and them not being police officers, they're pretty limited in what they can or can't do, and I know it's difficult for them to manage that, but I think their primary reasoning is they don't want to get any of their staff hurt.
Yeah, I witnessed a confrontation that involved an alleged emotional support dog, or I guess maybe an emotional support dog just is your emotional support dog. And I thought the staff did a good job of sticking to the script, but these people were not taking no for an answer, and it was just very disheartening. It's not our job to support them directly, but it is a canyon issue. So,
and while we're sympathetic to the needs of people, an emotional support animal does not qualify as a service animal under the ADA, and therefore they are prohibited in the watershed area. And
I was at one of this going through a security checkpoint, having my backpack checked for a bomb, and witnessed which is just a matter of routine, and witnessed it. And honestly, I was really impressed with the Snowbird employees, but in the end, they gave in and let the people take the dog into the event. So
it's one of the many tough things to manage up here.
Yeah, the bleed over. I think the potential, John, for the bleed over is significant for us to compound the emotion and complexity of dogs at this end of the canyon.
I'm worried that we're going to lose our ability to have a dog program because of so many dogs being in the canyon at these events, at these public events that are beyond our control.
We can sure be effective, yes.
I swore I would never mention dogs again.
You know, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I mean, it is one of our more dangerous contacts that we make.
Yeah,
Because not only do we have an upset human, we've got an animal who is very loyal to that human, sensing that stress and, you know, wanting to bite us. So.
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, one other comment I would make on Oktoberfest, it's not just the dog situation, but the traffic on the highways out. I don't know how to describe it, but somebody told me that they were driving down mid-afternoon and they had trouble turning left onto 94th South because the traffic was backed up all the way down there.
But I think but tangential to that, Mayor, I think one of the things I'd like to compliment Snowbird on is the expedition on widening the shoulder with asphalt and eliminating any north side parking. Two things that they managed to get through this year, which helped with that. And I had some conversations with Alta leadership or Snowbird leadership, and I thought it was great that they got that done this year. And I think it's going to contribute to, you know, it's not the magic bullet. It doesn't even do with dogs, but I think, you know, Oktoberfest is going to continue to come for us, and I think that was a good step forward for safety and traffic flow.
Yeah.
And I should probably report to you, as I have to Chris and Jan, we have been more involved with Oktoberfest this summer than in the past. The Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office, who, you know, now has responsibility for law enforcement patrol of Little Cottonwood, hasn't really got their secondary employment programs spun up. So the off-duty police officers that Snowbird hires to help contain Oktoberfest, they've had trouble staffing that. They've reached out to us. So we are allowing our deputies to do extra shifts down there presently. And
Wow.
Thanks,
Yeah, I
Mike.
agree with Dan. I would agree with Dan that the the work on the north side parking Snowbird's done has really helped with respect to the down traffic aspect. I will say though that the crowds are overwhelming. There was one Saturday they parked completely around the bypass loop, and it's hard to tell in my neighborhood because we have so many construction workers parking. It's hard to use cars for what. But my kids are now insisting on dinner on the table by 2 o'clock on Sunday so they can get the heck out of the canyon before the event closes.
I'd never seen that before, John, where it was cars parked all the way up past Ben Hank. I've never seen that where it was nonstop car parked all the way up.
Yeah, and there was one Saturday that it touched the cars parking on the state highway.
Yeah.
The ends of that. It's crazy.
I think they're parked up to past Elgate too.
Yep.
So,
Alta.
yeah,
Oh yeah, definitely parked all the way up the road past Tailgate.
right.
Yeah, no limit to the number of people.
Well, they are shutting down. They do limit. They have closed off access to Oktoberfest on a number of occasions where they hit capacity and said no more can come in.
Yeah,
Doesn't change any judgment up here.
unfortunately, the closure should be the bottom of.
Yeah. Anyway, I didn't have any other questions.
Okay, John, anything from you on the consent agendas?
No, I mean, I think it would be great to, I see Chris's note about the facilities master plan, and then we're gonna have a presentation next month. I stared at this for a while today, and honestly, I feel like we're largely out of the loop on this, and this is the most significant project of the summer. And, you know, I'm not sure that we're meeting the town manager's meeting the obligations under Town Code 1-15-2. And I encourage you to review that, and I can just leave
Why
it.
do we have a special presentation from them, extra, I don't know, set up a special meeting? I mean, they're just getting started now.
They are just getting started. They had a large team of folks in town today for 3 or 4 hours to do structural assessments. So they've basically gathered field data, taken measurements of the floor plans, inspected all the plumbing, mechanical, and electrical. They've interviewed staff. And you're gonna take that back and compile a report and get going on maintenance recommendations. So they'll present the findings of their structural assessments and their interviews to the council in November.
Well,
Yeah, Mike, oh, go ahead.
yeah, what do you say we have something in 10 days or so to get us a little more
Let me
acquainted?
just to clarify though, I would say that, my comments are related more to the selection process and the scope of work and the basic approach.
Okay, so those are things that are in the past, not what's going
Oh,
on.
the question is, did the manager meet the obligation under 1-15-2?
Okay. I can't answer that.
No, I can't answer that either, but we don't think we are doing that, or the,
I question whether we are.
thanks, John.
All right, I'd like to have an approval of the consent agenda and the council meeting minutes and staff and financial reports.
I move that we approve the consent agenda for September 11, 2024. Meeting notes and the staff and finance reports.
John?
I'm okay with that. Do we want to hold off the discussion about the fiscal year 25 budget until we get to item 10?
Yeah, I think I would prefer to do that.
Okay.
Great.
I
Yeah,
agree.
Just so we don't miss it, right?
yeah. Any objection? Or passes?
I can't
Who
object.
seconded? It wasn't clear.
Second. I'll second
John.
it.
Thank you.
All right,
Oh. We have to.
oh, do we have to vote? Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I lost track while you guys were doing that.
Okay. Any opposed?
Yeah,
No.
all in favor.
All in favor, yes.
All in favor, aye. Yes.
Yes.
No one else was opposed. All right, so we are, as I say, honored today to have Representative Bennion with us, and I would like to ask her to come tell us about what's happening.
Thank you. It's nice to be here with you, and I do think that the Central Wasatch Commission tour was very helpful. I'm very glad that they offered that, and glad that Mike Mon and Dave Fields expressed the desire for the attraction lot. And so I have submitted that bill file, and I just heard today from the drafting attorney. And so that will be moving along well. And we are reaching out to Senator Cullimore to have him be a co-sponsor for this. And another event relating to the canyon was the Salt Lake Climbing Alliance had a celebration. I think at the end of September, about gaining historical designation for climbing here as the first place in the nation to receive that designation. And so that they had people from the first, from the people that were first involved with that were there for that event. Unrelated directly to the canyon, but things that I am working on. Oh, one more thing with the canyon. With the tour from the Central Wasatch Commission, they had members of the Forest Service there, and they described better for me to understand the privilege that we all have of being in the watershed. They, I think it was them that explained that there are watersheds that don't allow any people to enter them. And places like this include Boulder and Tacoma. And then I met with the Forest Service after Central Wasatch Commission, and one of the most beautiful reservoirs in Massachusetts is closed to public access. So again, it just helped me understand the privilege that we have of being in the canyons, and so it helps me understand with what's happening at Snowbird. Maybe I need to reach out to them to remind them of this privilege and that we don't want to lose access for all the things that we're enjoying in the canyons by overuse or overuse with dogs specifically. And then two of the things that I focus on in my work are housing and water in general and the Great Salt Lake. And with housing, I have been able to be part of a commission on the housing affordability subgroup. They have not been meeting as much as I think we needed. And so I'm happy to let you know that from the governor's office, there's been an impetus to start a strategic housing plan working group. And that group just started to meet last Friday, and we will be meeting every other week. And so I think there's real intent with that group to have some actionable items. We'll be meeting every other week until the session begins. And so that is good. And also in the realm of housing, I serve on political subdivisions, and Representative Neil Walters announced there that he will be having a bill this session to address the not well language that is a problem with short-term rentals, to make it more clear what cities can do with regards to the advertisement for that short-term rental, because the confusion with that and litigation with Salt Lake City has led to really a lot of municipalities just not enforcing short-term rentals and out of fear of litigation. So that is very good news for housing. And then I go to a lot of meetings about water. I've been out on Great Salt Lake and on Utah Lake in September. And I can tell you that both of those areas are reducing the Phragmites, which is a big job, and reducing carp in Utah Lake. We met with the Timpanogos Special Service District Executive Director, and his vision, as they have reduced phosphates for Utah Lake, is now that they need ecological work on the lake to make the impacts that we all want for that lake. He envisions, and from science and from experiments that they've done right there on their facility, that we need cattails and native plants and clams that are native to the lake back in the lake, and to continue to remove the catfish and carp. So it's been good to see the work happening on both those bodies of water. I will have just a minor bill this year regarding irrigation water shares and transfer to bring all of that into probate, because some of that is not happening through probate. And I think that's all I have to share. It's nice to be up here again, and I represent 5 other cities, and so whenever you feel like I should be here, please let me know, because obviously today I learned some things that are helpful for me. So thank you.
Right, thanks. Well, thank you for
Thank you,
coming.
Kim.
Enjoy the colors on the way down.
Yeah. Any questions of Representative Benyon, John, or?
No, we appreciate your support.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
much. Okay, that takes us, I believe, to the mayor's report, which I will say, report it next month. Okay, so let's move on to discussion possible action and ordinance, item 10, the one that John mentioned, discussion possible action to adopt ordinance 2024-R-21.
Much quieter than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
John, I got the impression that you had something to lead off with.
Yeah.
I want to make, so I think we're deferring to you.
To me, I was thinking Jen was going to speak. This is,
Oh, go ahead.
If you'd like for me to give it, so, staff brought to the attention of the council last month a series of, requested amendments to budget. And instead of waiting till December, because some of these projects would like to get doing now.
Right.
We basically, I wrote up, a budget amendment, with a staff memo. I think you've all probably read it. I know that we're under the gun on timing today, so I guess if anybody has specific questions about any of the projects, I'd be happy to hear them. Chris and I can address them. There's just several in there.
it's
Do you want specifics about any of the projects?
It's
Well,
a little tricky, right? Because the water budget is part of the, I guess we're having separate ordinances for each portion of the 25 budget? Is that what's happening?
We pass budgets by resolution, and there's one resolution that adopts all 4 fund budgets at once.
And that's this one we're looking at.
And that includes, yes, John, this includes the water fund budget.
Right, I had no issues with the other with a couple of minor changes in the expense side in the general fund. The one issue I was concerned about is that we seem to have there seems to have been I'm going to say a clerical oversight in putting in the general fund water fund loan pay down as per the resolution passed in December. And I believe you're prepared to make that adjustment, and I think we should support that and pass this subject to Jen's amendment of the principal pay down issue in the water fund.
So subsequent to the proposed budget that was sent out to the council and was posted online, prior to this meeting, I have prepared a new version of the budget for you that has been distributed to the council.
Right.
That includes several adjustments for the council to consider. One of them includes doubling the debt service from the water fund to the general fund in fiscal year 25 to address the resolution that we passed last December to pay back this water fund to the general fund. We did not make corresponding budget adjustments in the following months and in that year. So that window of opportunity has closed for FY 24. So if we would like to hold to the obligation as it's written in the resolution, we could just double the payment this year and say one was intended for FY 24, and then one for 25. And then we'll be up to speed with the schedule that we kind of laid out in the resolution that we passed last December.
Right, and by doing it this way, I think it's simplest from a procedural standpoint and the amount of paperwork that you have to do. And we're now in compliance with the spirit, and by 2025, the letter of the resolution that was passed in December of 23, correct?
Correct. The other adjustment up for consideration today that was not previously in the budget was we received we received one bid, engineering bid for the rope tow project, and we previously asked to increase this budget item. Our bid came back still above what we were asking for, so
Right.
I've increased that by another $2,877. So there's an additional increase on that line item. I have the corresponding adjustments to zero out each of the individual funds. So we have now 61,000 coming from the water fund to the general fund. You see that in the general fund. I offset that with a reduction in the transfer to the capital projects fund.
Which was substantial, it was
Yes,
like.
and then also in the water fund, I did make an adjustment to the amount of money that we are, what is it? It's the use of the water fund reserve. So as we changed some of the numbers in the expense side of things, we had to have a corresponding change in the revenue. So
And that's
zeros.
included in
That is
2024
included in-
R21?
I'm sorry.
Is that included in R21?
The resolution we're currently discussing.
What I would like for you to do is if you decide to pass this, I would like you to call out these changes just for the record.
Okay, got
And you
it.
can, those two changes namely, and the corresponding entries to make sure that the budget's zero. I think that would be the cleanest and most transparent way of doing this, because what was presented to the public and the council was a different version of this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, can you give me what
Yes.
the water to general fund amount? How much?
61,400.
1,400, and then the second one goes from and to, and how much?
Oh, that's the only two from one
Okay,
fund to whatever.
okay, but what's the wording then we were looking for to include in this to ensure that this covers both items?
that we are going to adjust, 5140,320 in the water fund expenditures.
Wait, 5140,320.
Yeah,
Okay,
to $22,877.
wait, man, I do not write that fast.
You
And I think
have-
I'm the one who's gonna,
Okay.
is it in there?
It's page 13 of 15,
Oh,
right here.
or John, are you covered on this? Could you read that out?
Yeah, so the 22,870, that's in account 51-40-320.
Correct.
And then the other adjustment is that we're increasing the amount of the debt service principal pay down to 61,400, and that's in 51-40-810.
Correct. And then to make the budget zero out, 5139,200, which is in the revenue, it ends up being $148,643.
Okay, so subject to those changes.
The only thing I'd add is that Jen, you and I talked about maybe steering towards a footnote in the financial statements at the end of the year, just so there's a record of what we did here and that we are complying with the ordinance we passed in December, and that the principal pay down has happened. Remember, this issue was sort of fraught with people's memories and lots of conflicting things. I think the thing that's important to me, and I think Elise too, is that there be a clear path here, and that we're establishing, really once and for all, that we're paying this loan down, that we're paying it down consistent with the resolution in December. So I guess I'd add that, I'd ask you to document that with a footnote when the time comes.
I have a note on my calendar to do it tomorrow. I was waiting to see if it passed the budget. Can I just also make, in the general fund, there's gonna be two changes.
Yeah.
And I just wanna call those out since we were
Okay.
articulate on the other ones. That line 1036,300 is gonna be increased to 61,400. And then this corresponding entry for the contribution to the capital projects fund is going to change to be $194,440. That's on page 10 of.
I went the wrong direction.
Yeah, general funds. So anyways, I think we've articulated that hopefully amongst all of us out loud.
Yep.
Okay, subject to those changes, could we have a motion?
Sure, I move that we adopt ordinance 2024-R-21 to amend the FY 2025 budgets to include the discussion items as agreed to by all parties present just now.
I second that. John? Great, you're
Aye.
nodding.
Aye, yes.
All in favor?
Yes.
All in
you wanna-
favor.
You have to
Oh,
answer
that's right, I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Councilmember Byrne,
Yes.
Mayor Byrne.
Yes.
Councilmember Schilling.
Yes.
Any opposed? No. Motion passes.
Thank
Okay,
you.
now, we're gonna lose our quorum here in a few minutes, so
I think we'll make it.
you do?
I do.
Okay, discussion possible action adopted ordinance 2024-R-22, updating capital projects plan.
I'll just offer that this is basically, we just amended this part of the budget. We always, if there's implications with capital projects plan, we adopt them both kind of in sequence. And so this is just,
Okay, any discussion on that?
I'm just rereading it.
And move we adopt the resolution.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor? Aye, yes?
No, she's.
Oh, no, okay, sorry,
Schilling,
Yes.
Mayor Burke,
yes,
Councilmember Byrne.
Yes.
okay, adopted. Discussion possible action to adopt ordinance 2024-R-23, repealing and replacing the water rates resolution to authorize monthly billing.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
This is. As I said in their clerk's report, we are trying to modernize what we do in the clerk's office in a number of ways. And so we recognized that the resolution, the water and the sewer resolutions both said we do quarterly billing. So we are asking for the council's support to move to monthly billing. It will work much better with the new software we're hoping to use,
Yeah.
the utility software we're purchased and we're getting up and running with.
Yes, I
So I
remember
think that
people-
it's pretty simple. There was actually one small typo in a number that was in two places that it was off by a penny in one place. So we corrected that as well in this. But that's the only changes to both the water and the sewer resolutions.
Okay, any
As a
questions,
summary.
discussions on this one?
I accept what you're saying about the software interface. It's a little counterintuitive to suggest that it's gonna be easier to bill monthly instead of quarterly, but if that's how you guys feel about it, I'm fine with that. Seems like we're making more work by doing it monthly instead of.
John, we have definitely discussed that. No, we've definitely discussed that. It is going through the process of doing it more regularly, but we're also hoping to automate the payment side of things in such a way. So yes, on one side, but once the whole system is all put together, all of the moving parts, we hope are gonna be much more efficient, better for the customers, better for the staff. It's gonna take a minute to get there.
We have some
But-
information security improvements that work
Yes.
out of this
Yes.
that are gonna resolve a major vulnerability for us and our.
No,
That's good too.
yeah,
Great, well, if that's how, like I say, if that's how the clerk's office feels about it, I'm happy to go along with it, and thank you for that additional explanation.
does that mean you're moving to adopt it?
Sure, I'll move to adopt the change in the water resolution.
Okay. I'll second. All in favor?
Roll call.
Oh, roll call.
I don't wanna
Go,
jump
go,
on.
do it.
Councilmember Byrne,
Yes.
Mayor Burke.
Yes.
Councilmember Schilling.
Yes.
Okay, passes. The next one has to do with a similar thing for the sewer rates, correct? Or the sewer bills. Just discuss the possible action to adopt ordinance 2024-R-24, repealing and replacing sewer rates resolution to authorize monthly billing.
For the reasons discussed by our clerk and Councilmember Byrne, I feel that this meets the spirit of consistency. So unless John has anything to add, I don't see, I move that we adopt ordinance 2024-R-24, which repeals and replaces the sewer rates for resolution to authorize monthly billing.
I'll second that. Roll call.
Councilmember Schilling.
Yes.
Mayor Burke.
Yes.
Councilmember Byrne.
Yes.
And just one quick note, I did make an administrative update to the sewer resolution to actually have today's date on it.
All right.
If anybody noticed that.
I didn't notice that.
It was at the very end. I noticed it today.
Okay, discussion of possible action in ordinance 2024-O-8 to update alcohol beverage classifications in the business license.
In June, we did a major overhaul to the alcohol and beverage ordinance, basically to comply with and have the same language with the state. At some point in our drafting, we've lost a section.
Okay.
And so what you actually approved had a blank. And so this is just adding that language on so that we can update our ordinance and that it's complete. I don't think the language in there is probably any.
So I thought
not-
we discussed this once before. Good addition for a single event thing to have this.
Yeah.
And I think we discussed it, didn't we, John?
Basically, this is just a clerical correction, correct?
Yes, yes.
Well, yes and no, because we didn't really consider this language when we passed it before, and so yes, it was blank, but I don't believe we've actually had I think a step towards permitting these single event liquor licenses makes tons of sense for the town. We're all aware of the sort of the most problematic one of these. And I guess my question, I just want to make sure that that this change is going to apply to situations like the summer wedding program where the lodge is renting the venue but not manning the bar, not being responsible for the bar, not being responsible for much as far as we can see. Will this apply to those events, Cameron?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to understand the specifics of each event, but any event that requires a permit in the jurisdiction of the town would require this permit. So for a single event. So I guess it can't be under the umbrella of some other lodge event license. If it's a single event, that event organizer has to have it. If it's the lodge putting on the event, then the lodge would have to get the single event permit. If it's, the wedding organizer doing it for the wedding, they would need to get the permit.
Yeah, I think it's the latter. And I think, it's probably important to think about what we want to require in that permit application. To me, evidence of liquor license liability insurance from the wedding planner person, it would be something I'd like to see in the permit application. In the sense that our biggest risk, I think, about allowing these events is that we allow them to take place without being properly insured.
Molly wanted to say something.
So my understanding is like the examples you're giving, like a wedding at one of the lodges, each lodge is already licensed to do events like that. And this would be more if, say, like the Cirque Series decided they wanted to have a beer garden at the bottom when they do their big special event here, and they were like a new vendor or entity coming up and doing a special event. In which they
Even our existing.
But there's a certain amount of ambiguity as to whether they're using the lodge's liquor license or not, and if you ask the lodge, they would, at least some of the time, they would say, no, this is an outside vendor hosting this event. So, I think we want to try to end that ambiguity of, is it the lodge on the hook for the liquor liability or is it the vendor? And if it's the vendor, they need to have evidence that they have liquor liability insurance.
But the wording does not allow for that sort of consideration for the lodges, because it just requires, if you're a special entity, this is a broader language, I think. So the lodges become a subset already by virtue of their liquor license.
If the lodge is on the hook and the lodge is doing the event and they're on the hook or they're willing to be on the hook, I don't think this applies. But if the lodge is going to maintain that they aren't on the hook, then this does apply.
Yeah, I agree.
Is that consistent with your understanding, Molly?
Yes, and I will say, since I've been the deputy clerk, we have had this type of license in our ordinance, and I've never had to issue one, so it's not a common occurrence.
Okay, interesting.
And the only thing that was missing in the resolution or the ordinance that was passed in June, we did have the line item F single event permit, it was just the description was missing, so it was still included in some element.
The language just dropped off.
So are we over talking it? Is that what you guys? I see members of the audience nodding.
Yes.
Ready to go. I move that we approve ordinance 24-0-8.
I second that.
Okay, any further discussion then? And roll call.
Mayor Burke.
Aye.
Councilmember Burner.
Yes.
Councilmember Schiller.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. All right, the last item is, we need a quorum for this. I appreciate your hanging in there to do that.
Do we need a quorum for this last time?
No, we don't, I don't think, because.
No, we have to close the meeting.
If we don't.
Oh.
We don't need a quorum to close the meeting, right?
No.
We do not need a quorum
No.
to close the meeting, so just Roger and I can close the meeting if it comes to it.
No, this is not a business item, so.
It's just an information item.
It's just an information item.
Okay, so what's the right procedure? Do we close the meeting and then you?
If Dan
continue?
is leaving, then we're adjourning the meeting.
Okay, all right,
How long is that item? I can make the National Security Council wait.
yeah, good.
All right, the only thing we can do if we don't have a quorum is to adjourn the meeting.
Yes, but it only requires 2 to do that.
Cool. But we can't take any other action.
Correct.
Cool.
But this is just a report from you.
Yeah.
Yes,
You wanna give us a paragraph?
well, sure, we're trying to follow up on some input we received in the January council retreat. To draft and propose a town of Alta purpose or mission statement to the council. We've had a series of workshops in September where we collected example mission statements from the municipalities. Brainstormed our portfolio of services, kind of the who, what, where, and why of the town of Alta, a reason for being. And then we went home and each of us drafted a proposed kind of first take on a mission statement and also key values. Anyway, so you could just go on, Brooke, to the slide where I have the actual mission and key values. So Mike Morey provided us, as he often does, with this little nugget of wisdom about strategic planning, which was to say that your mission is what you do and your values are how you do it. So thanks to Father Mike for, as always, providing that clear, concise language that helps us stay on track. So this is what we came up with. We crunched, a half dozen examples from staff and other cities to get this mission statement here, which is that the mission of the town of Alta is to provide municipal services that promote safety and quality of life for Alta's community, protect Alta's alpine environment and unique heritage, carefully manage growth and development, and support Alta's local economy. This sounds a lot like other mission or purpose statements in other municipalities. We did have a lot of dialogue about how to reflect, unique components of Alta's environment and character. Core values, we each came to this meeting with 3 to 5 examples of core value statements that we thought were important to the way we do business at the town of Alta. I took a poetic license to find common themes from all the suggestions and came up with accessibility, accountability, transparency, and equity. And you can see some of those other common words or phrases, adjectives that appeared in our workshop.
Right. Great.
So moving on, we are trying to, in the next slide, we're trying to find a time when we can convene at least most of the council over the next 3 months or so to do another retreat. It's been a recommendation of mine that the town try to hold these events annually. Perhaps annually is too much, but we do have funds in the budget this year to bring a facilitator back to facilitate another session for us. So I appreciate your patience in working with me to find a date when we can do that. So we'll let you know as soon as we've got a consensus on when a decent date is.
Okay.
So that's really it. It was just an update. I have a little bit more detail on the next slide about our work to date to define a plan for holding this retreat. So once again, I appreciate your patience as we work through the challenges of scheduling. And I've taken some helpful constructive input on an agenda for this session. So we have this draft purpose statement. We're a little late to the table with it. After the input was provided in January, obviously it's been a really busy year. But I'm hopeful that in the retreat, we could spend a portion of the session workshopping this and getting your input in a more collaborative way. So
I have one comment.
Yeah.
I think this format allows invested parties, which is all citizens, and the leadership of the town and the staff to discuss things in a way that is not rigid like what we're trying to do every month. I think it's got inherent value that actually can't be quantified, and I'm out.
Thanks, Dan.
Just you mentioned to the president, we appreciate his indulgence in being here for a while.
You're gonna have to wake him up to do that.
What's that?
You're gonna have to wake the president up to give him that advice.
But I know where he sleeps.
Okay.
That takes us to new business. I have none. Do you have any
Can I make one comment about the retreat? Is Craig Highmark still there?
Yes.
You know, Craig, one of the things I suggested to Chris, and I was hoping maybe it would resonate with you. You know, we have this big change going on in our tax structure as a result of the mega passes and the redemptions. We don't get tax revenue on the redemptions. We all sort of think this is a problem. Nobody really has put any kind of pencil to paper. And I was suggesting to Chris that, you know, the whole retreat doesn't have to be big picture thinking. I'd love to see us do a deep dive. Maybe one of the pieces of the retreat be a deep dive into something like the potential impact of the tax issue and lift ticket sales. You know, I understand that this is, you know, in some places this is now approaching 50% of the skiers. So if you think about that in a simplistic way, you know, could that have the potential to reduce our lift ticket sales tax by as much as 50%? And if it did, what would our finances look like? How impactful would that be? How much of a problem would it be? So I was just hoping that would resonate with you.
Since you directed that to me, John, I think that's a good question. I do think there are a number of issues that have to do with what I'm gonna call long-term financing viability. You certainly raised one of them. I think others are in the implied capital budget spend that we've got in the out years. And I think probably talking about what's the magnitude that we might be facing and what would be potential solutions to that, because there are a number, would be a good discussion at an offsite.
I agree.
Yeah, me too.
But John, I do want to make one other comment, which is, I was out of town for the month of September, as I think you know. So I wasn't really involved in the crafting of the mission statement. That said, and the values. That said, I thought it was really good. And given the fact that you actually delegated the town staff to do that at the last meeting, I just wanted to make sure that you were happy with the result.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's an attempt to be inclusive, and that's always great in these situations. I think we could probably pare it down a little, but yeah, I'm happy to see that the staff took the initiative to go ahead and have a meeting and produce it, and you know, I think we should massage it and hopefully at some point, you know, really adopt it as our creed.
Thanks.
Yeah, good statement. Anything else from anyone? Then I move we adjourn. Do we have to have a second? Or do we, or we're adjourned?
You should have a second and a vote. That's all that the two of you can vote for, but yes.
Okay, John seconded, I think.
Oh, I second it. And we don't need a roll call, right? Because it's not a monetary issue.
No. Yeah. I just want to make one postscript, which is post-meeting, and that is that Galen mentioned this historic climbing designation. It's interesting that one of the originators of that climbing activity is the current county mayor's father and previous mayor, Ted Wilson. Yeah, starts. People hang around here a long time. Okay, thank you all. Truncated meeting or accelerated meeting, you might say. Appreciate your assistance.
Big agenda.
Yeah.
See you next month, everybody.
Yep. Jim? Don't go away. I'll let you meet Craig. You're gonna be sitting next to him at dinner. And I want to talk to you guys about transportation. Because I think my car left. Oh, yeah. So
We can just walk up to my car and go up in my car.
Yeah, I would recommend
You have to run.
that we all go in your car and you leave yours down here.
Okay. 2-minute walk up in my car.
Yeah.
What's the goal? I have a snow tractor.